Hi, Sal Licata here, live with the Sal Licata Show podcast, reacting to, of course, the latest disappointing news as it pertains to the New York Mets. Kyle Tucker spurning the Mets to go to the Dodgers. Is anybody really surprised at this point? I mean, the Dodgers. Now, what I will say is that, again, similar to what we saw with Yamamoto, there's really not much the Mets could do. I know everybody wants to go nuts and yell at the Mets and, oh, how do they lose in this and that? And we'll get into the ramifications of this in just a second. But as it pertains to losing out on Kyle Tucker, I just saw Heyman post this on X a couple of seconds ago. 4 years, $240 million. Come on. It's getting out of control. I mean, I'm sure all of it's deferred. I got to stay up to date on that to see how much of it is actually deferred by the Dodgers. But either way, $60 million a year for Kyle Tucker? No, thank you. Not even in 4 years would I want Kyle Tucker for that. So that is absurd. I mean, the sport is it's out of control here. And it's the big bad Dodgers. They needed an outfielder. They needed another star. Coming off another World Series win. The rich get richer, they get better, whatever. I still don't think that they're unbeatable. I mean, somebody's actually have to beat them for that to change. But I don't look at them as saying, they can't be beaten. They almost got beat by the Blue Jays last year. 2 years ago, they almost got beat by the Padres in the first round. Tucker's not – he can't put them over the top when they're already on the top. So Tucker could have made the Blue Jays better. He could have made the Mets better. I don't know if I necessarily look at him and say the Dodgers are better. Think of it this way. If Tucker went to the Mets, would you say that the Mets are better than the Dodgers? Probably not, right? You'd be like, well, no, the Mets are good. They're getting there, but they need to add pitching. They need to do this. They need to do that, right-handed bat. So I still don't think Tucker going to the Mets would make them better than the Dodgers. And I don't think that Tucker going to the Dodgers makes them that much better than everybody else because they're already that much better than everything else. It's the old once something's wet, it's wet theory. Like you can't be more wet than the Dodgers. I am floored. And I'm not even annoyed from a Met fan perspective. Did I really, truly believe they were going to end up with Tucker? I never really felt it. Like Soto last year when I was telling you we were going to get Soto. I felt that deep in my core. With Tucker, I wasn't so sure. I was wondering what the holdup was. Was it, did he want a longer commitment from the Blue Jays? What I'm shocked about here is not the result of Tucker going to the Dodgers. I'm shocked that he got $60 million a year. Who in their right mind would pay him $60 million? And if I'm Steve Cohen, I've got to be thinking to myself, what the F do I got to do to be able to land one of these guys? Ohtani wanted no part of the East Coast. You could throw in the Yankees, too. Good for the Yankees not even getting involved in it. Like, the Bronze Bombers actually paid off in this spot. You never even got your feelings hurt if you're a Yankee fan because your team never had a chance. At least the Mets, and this is the second time it's happened now. Yamamoto, obviously the one of recent mind. The Mets go to, 320, whatever it was. I thought they were going to get Yamamoto. And obviously, he goes to the Dodgers. With Tucker, same thing. Mets set the table. We'll give you $50 million a year, 4 years, $200 million. And then this guy who probably wanted no part of New York, I believe the rumors. Now I do. I believe the rumors about Kyle Tucker. Not want the slow motor, not wanting the big city, New York. He could go to the Dodgers and fit in like everybody else and join it already, like the Kevin Durant of the MLB. You go join the Dodgers, already a champion. And by the way, it actually is disrespectful to KD to call Kyle Tucker that. But you get the point. It's a big city in LA, but he's nowhere near the smoke. He's just another guy in a star-studded roster. Here in New York, there would have been big-time pressure on Kyle Tucker. He hurts his hand or hurts his wrist. People are going to want to know why he's not performing. So I think a little bit less smoke, if not a lot of bit less smoke, in Los Angeles. He clearly didn't want New York and was using the Mets to drive up the price. I'm sorry. I can't go nuts with blaming Steve Cohen or David Stearns or the Mets. They're not cheap. They tried. The fact that the guy turned down $200 million over 5 years because he got a better offer for 6 years. For 4 years for $60 million a year for $240. Unbelievable. Now, the part that matters, because Kyle Tucker is now irrelevant. Not on the Yankees, not on the Mets. He's with the Dodgers. That's our problem to try to go beat the Dodgers. Yankees got ways to go. Obviously, the Mets do. So the Mets miss out on Kyle Tucker here. That's the problem that you have when you let Alonso go. And I guess the first thought, aside from, because you can't go back and change history, and I still believe it was the right thing to do to break up the core. I said this, I'm on record saying it, I would have brought back Alonso and tried to change as much of everything else as I could have, even mentioning that I would have traded Francisco Lindor. They chose to let Alonso go for probably many reasons. The easy thing is to just not sign somebody back. It's going to be hard to trade Lindor in that contract, but whatever. Lindor and Soto were their two guys. Okay, so now how do they build around it? And Tucker was going to be the right answer. They desperately needed an outfielder. So now, what's the natural pivot? You don't need me to tell you this, but I'll tell you it anyway. The natural pivot is Cody Bellinger. I don't think Bellinger's a good fit with the Mets. I know that they need an outfielder. I know that they're desperate. But does that mean that you should now overpay for a guy who you don't believe is as good as the guy you just offered $50 million a year? And you're going to settle for less than? And you're going to have to beat the Yankees' offer of 5 years, $30 million a year? I don't think that that's smart business for the Mets. Now, what's the alternative outside of that? I got to be honest with you. I'm at a loss. But just because I'm at a loss does not mean that the Mets wouldn't pivot to Bellinger. As a matter of fact, I see the latest as it's coming in here. I can't even put my glasses on when I get these headphones on. You have Jim Duquette, who's been all over this Tucker thing with the Mets, talking about the Mets offer to Tucker may have ended up higher than Soto's $51 million AAV, which is just insane. Like, as badly as I would have liked Kyle Tucker, I would never have paid him more than Juan Soto. That's just asinine. I'm sorry. Anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. This is Duquette's post on X. Likely pivot to Bellinger. So he's saying the Mets will likely pivot to Bellinger since he's still available after the Yanks are currently at a stalemate after 2.5 months of negotiating. So now that brings the Mets to Bellinger because there are no other options. So even though I don't think it's a smart move to go beyond what the Yankees did, 5 for $30 million a year, and I think Bellinger's worth more with the Yankees because I think he's a better Yankee in that lineup, in that ballpark. I would worry about Bellinger's offense suffering a little bit going to Citi Field and not hitting in a lineup with Aaron Judge in it. I mean, that's just the reality. Anybody hitting in front or behind Judge is going to be better off for it. Even Soto, who can hit in front or behind anybody and put up monster numbers, as proven throughout his career, even he was better with Judge behind him. Who wouldn't be? But Bellinger is not Soto's level. He's not Tucker's level. So I don't trust him consistently to perform offensively, and I certainly wouldn't be giving him 5, 6 years, and that's going to take to get it done, 6 or 7 years, because that's where the Yankees are at 5. So to get him away from the Yankees, you're going to have to pay him, let's say, $30 million a year for 6 or 7. Now, does he fit defensively? Yeah, like a glove. He can play some center field. He could play first. He could play left. You could move Benj around. That, though, to me, if it came out right now that the Mets signed Bellinger, I'd be like, okay, it's a nice move, but I wouldn't feel the way that I would, obviously, had they signed Kyle Tucker. It's a rock and a hard spot, though, because there's nothing they could do. What is frustrating from a Met fan perspective is that they finally have an owner, who is willing to spend whatever it takes to get players. And these guys outside of Soto keep turning it down. For the same team, they all want to go to the Dodgers. How can you compete with that? So we're looking at another, 88 win team? Oh, we can still make the playoffs. Yeah, great, make the playoffs. The Reds made the playoffs. They stink. I don't want to make the playoffs. I want to win. I want to win it all. And they're trying to do it. Stearns is going to have to get creative. Hey, that's the bottom line. It's about results. They screwed up the Diaz thing. No good. They decided to break up the core. I think very good. But when you do that, you have to have a pivot. And the pivot couldn't have been all in for Kyle Tucker. That couldn't have been because they knew that in all likelihood, the thoughts about Tucker were going to be that the guy was going to get $400 million going in the offseason, which would have taken them out from the get-go. They were never going to commit long-term to him because of Soto and Lindor. They're just not going to do that. And I would understand it to a certain extent. But then when the shorter-term, higher AAV started to come into play, that's when the Mets felt like they could pounce. So this was never, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just trying to use a little common sense. This was never a plan B for them or, oh yeah, we're going to let Alonso go and trade Nemo and go get Tucker. I don't believe that was the case. I think that they felt, hey, He's coming back into our window here, our wheelhouse. Yeah, we'll get it. We'll give him $50 million a year for 4 years. That's a pretty solid freaking offer. $200 million over the course of 4 years. If he wants to take it, we love it. We'll put him in the outfield. But if not, there had to be the if not, what are they going to do? Because I really don't think they ever thought prior to this price coming down the last couple of weeks with Tucker that they thought they were going to get him. And I talk about price coming down. That's nonsense. The price is not coming down. He got $240 million. $240 million over 4 years. $60 million a year. That's insane. But what is Stern's plan? What's on his big board? It can't be let everybody go, hope to get Tucker, and then trade for Luis Roberts Jr. And let me remind you, not that you need to be reminded here, it is, as we record this, January 15th, and as maybe you listen to this, January 16th. Either way, a day doesn't make a difference. The Mets have not added one starting pitcher. Not one. They haven't added a single starting pitcher. I think they need two. They haven't added one. Not to mention that their lineup is not going to be as good as it was a year ago. Certainly not, obviously minus Pete, now without Kyle Tucker. So, look, I'm sure that now things are going to start to fall into place, specifically with Bellinger. I'm just refreshing, making sure, nothing happens imminently here. But the latest news I see, Mets and Yanks checked in on Freddie Peralta, but they do believe the Brewers will trade Peralta. That's going to be to me, that's got to be the guy that the Mets get to anchor the rotation. Forget Framber Valdez. I wouldn't pay him either, so I understand that. I would make a trade for Peralta. I don't care what the price is. Like, outside of McLean and Benj, you're not giving those guys up. That's not realistic. So I personally would go get Peralta. Now at least you have your ace. Could you live with that rotation going into the season? Yeah, Peralta, McLean, hope bounce back years from Manaea, Senga, whatever. I don't even know what it would take to get Peralta. Maybe they have to trade one of those guys. Maybe Senga has to go to Milwaukee in return. Whatever. Point is, we're getting we're a month away, less than a month away from pitchers and catchers. Mets haven't added a single pitcher to a starting rotation that was as bad as you can be a year ago. They let Alonso go, and the one guy out there that could have softened that blow, and I think made them better, was Kyle Tucker. And now you lose him, not to a fault of your own, but just because the Dodgers go way above and beyond and offer him a ridiculous $60 million per year. Doesn't matter how it happens. It's where you are. And where the Mets are right now is not a very good predicament. They can say that they're a playoff team. We all know that the reality is, even if they are a playoff team, that's not good enough. You could have the money, but if you can't spend it on anybody, what good is it? But it also doesn't mean you just go lighting it on fire. And to me, that would be 6 years of Cody Bellinger. That makes no sense. I'd rather them have extended to the point the Dodgers did, even if Tucker wouldn't have taken it, because Tucker, just like Yamamoto and Sasaki, probably wanted the Dodgers all along, right? We all knew it was the perfect fit. Everybody realistically expected this to be the case. We all knew it was going to. We've seen this movie before. They all end the same way. It all ends the same way. The guys go to the Dodgers, working up the Mets or the Yankees or whoever else is in the Blue Jays, and then they go to the Dodgers. So we knew how it was going to end. But I'd rather, if I were the Mets, I would rather have spent the $250, let's say, on Tucker than I would spending $30 million a year for 6 years on Bellinger. Problem is they just have nowhere to turn. I don't think, though, desperation, the same way that I would say with the Jets for a quarterback search or the Giants for a head coach, whatever it may be, just because you're desperate doesn't mean you should take the next best thing. I would not do that if I'm the Mets. So I believe Bellinger's a better fit with the Yankees. We'll see how that ends up. And if you do take Bellinger out of the mix for the Mets, I just don't know what the answer is. It can't be Harrison Bader. No offense, I don't want to see Harrison Bader in center field and Benj in left. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And now you're talking about trying to compete with the Dodgers. I'm just worried about the Mets getting to be a consistent playoff team, but we're talking about good enough to beat the Dodgers and go win a World Series. And even the Mets at their best in 2024, it was a lopsided match with the Dodgers in the postseason. The Dodgers have gotten better, and the Mets have completely changed the infrastructure of their team, which isn't a bad thing, but you need to start adding some freaking players here. Pitchers, players. I don't know, man. How many years were we complaining, about not spending enough and not being aggressive enough on the top end, high tier free agents, top tier free agents, high end free agents? And now it's not that. Now it's, geez, you can't even get a guy to take $50 million a year when he's not even worth $40 million a year when you think about it with Kyle Tucker. He ain't that good. I don't care what anybody says. He ain't that good. One last thing here on the Kyle Tucker Mets situation. The Mets, because reports just keep coming out as we record this, the Mets' final offer was 4 years, $220 million, which is absurd to me that they would get beat. And the Dodgers obviously end up with Tucker 4 years, 240. So a $20 million difference. That's how the Mets lose Kyle Tucker, which was an already absurd number. Steve Cohen's got to be beside himself. The other note, just to tag it on that I was thinking about this, and I don't want to go back in history, but I mean, Pete Alonso got 5 years, $155 million. Think of how, and I think Kyle Tucker's a better player, but he doesn't have the proven power that Pete has consistently, and he's not proven in New York. The fact that the Mets would go to $220 million for 4 years for Kyle Tucker, but couldn't go to 160 for 5 years for Pete Alonso. Good God. I mean, I'm all for breaking up the core. Someone's got to help me make sense of that one. That does not make sense. All right. Let's turn our attention to what I believe is the greatest weekend in sports. I love Wild Card Weekend. I'm not going to call it Super Wild Card Weekend because I think that that's lame. I love Wild Card Weekend, but Divisional Round, this is where it gets real. This is where you win to have a right to play for the Super Bowl Championship Sunday. It doesn't get much better than this. You got the full slate of 4 games starting with 4 o'clock on Saturday. As a matter of fact, this weekend's so much fun that my friends and I, we usually get together, like my closest friends and I, we usually get together for one weekend in January. And it used to be, I don't know, Wild Card Weekend or Championship Weekend. It could just be a random one of the playoff weekends we would get together. And then we started to, over the last couple of years, hone in on this divisional round. And I think it's a great thing because Championship Sunday is great. But then Saturday you meet and you really don't have any games. Sunday you get the 2 games and that's that. Divisional round, wild card's too crazy because you got games all over the place. But when you got friends coming out of town, I got one buddy, my buddy Wink, coming in from Milwaukee, Saratoga Wills, who some of you may be familiar with. I've had him on my shows at The Fan or podcast. He's coming down from Saratoga. We get all set. And that's what it's about for me. Like, we're going to be betting the games, watching the games. The food order is out of control. We got pizza. We're actually going to try, there's a bagel spot in Queens, Utopia Bagels, I think it's called, where they have this enormous pizza bagel. Saratoga Wills, I think, saw it on TikTok, and we're all like, yeah, let's try that. So we're gonna get that. Anyway, not that you need to know the details, but the food is gonna be Super Bowl-esque for 2 straight freaking days. And by the way, you know what my wife's worried about? I got my friends coming over. I'm excited for the game. We're all pumped up about it. The food order, all this. Today, she's telling me I got to clean the back door glass window because it's dirty from Maddox putting his paws on it when he's trying to get in. He doesn't bark for some reason. He likes scratching the glass. That's what we need. But it's all dirty. I'm like, you think my friends give a shit what that door looks like? They're going to worry about the chips and dip and what food we got and what drinks we got going. They wouldn't even notice the back door. And I don't even notice the back door. Hey, it's not your friends. If it were her friends coming over, I could understand that. My friends, they ain't going to give a shit about the glass door. Anyway, let's get to the games because that's what's important here. First game, you get the Broncos and Bills. And I really hate that this is the first game because to me, this is one of the best games. This should be a prime matchup here. Really Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. I understand why they do it the way that they do it. The Chicago market, LA, they're making that game the prime game. But the game that intrigues me the most this weekend is, in fact, the Bills and Broncos. And if you listened to any of BT and I during the course of the year on The Fan, you knew or you know that I'm a big Broncos believer and have been all year long. However, I am now riding Josh Allen in this postseason. I had them last week to beat the Jaguars. It was one of the couple of games that I actually won. a week ago. And Denver's a daunting place to play, to go there on the road, playoff atmosphere, great head coach in Sean Payton, nasty defense, maybe not as nasty as the Texans, but still a nasty defense. Not going to be easy. Bills banged up a little bit. They've been hanging on for dear life here, winning these games by the skin of their teeth, but they do it because Josh Allen might, in fact, be Superman. And I'm not betting against Superman and the Bills. So as much as I love Denver and think that that's a difficult place to play, as a matter of fact, if New England were to go to Denver, and that would be the case if both Denver and New England win, I would pick the Broncos. But New England, while they may have the MVP in Drake May, they don't have Josh Allen, who I think is the best player left in the tournament. Give me the Bills on the road plus 1.5. I don't think the points will make a difference here, but I think the Bills figure out a way to go in there and upset the Broncos, mild upset, whatever. But, Bo Nix, all year long, the one thing that was holding me from going over the top about Denver was Bo Nix. I don't know if the week off is going to maybe make Denver a little stale. Who the hell knows how that's going to play out? We've seen that happen before, though, with the bye week. It's maybe not necessarily I know you want the rest, but sometimes it could hurt you, killing some of the momentum that you had. But Bo Nix is the biggest issue there. I think everything else is on par to be a team that could go to the Super Bowl, except the quarterback. So the head coach, huge advantage Denver. Quarterback, huge advantage, maybe even bigger Buffalo. That's why I'm going to go with Josh Allen and the Bills, game number 1. By the way, I reserve the right to change my mind as we record this late Thursday night. As a matter of fact, into the wee hours of Friday morning. The way that I bet these games or get a feel for these games, I have an idea like I do now. And then come Saturday morning, closer to game time, I start to even dive in a little bit more and get more of a gut feel. And then boom, I'll pull the trigger. Same thing Sunday. So right to reserve my mind here, but this is how I feel right now. And most likely is the way that I'll go. I don't understand the line in the Saturday night game. Niners, Seahawks. Now, the league screwed the Niners. Shanahan basically begged for it after the game, saying, I hope the league is kind to us and puts us on Sunday. Obviously, coming off of a short week with the Niners playing on Sunday, banged up. The Seahawks on a bye, so they're well rested. And the league didn't do the Niners any favors. Kittle, is not going to be there for this game. He wouldn't have been there Sunday either, so that doesn't matter. But just the fact that the Niners had to travel back from Philly, go back across the West Coast, then up to Seattle, and play them on a short week while Seattle's fully rested, you would think would favor the Seahawks. I know what happened last time these two teams played. Seattle, a 7-point favorite. Give me the Niners all day, every day. I think the Niners are better. I think they're the better coach team. Now, they may not have the better defense. Obviously, that goes with the Seahawks. Seahawks could have a nasty defense. Niners defense is a sieve. We've seen that. But just, I see this being a tighter game. It's a 7-point spread. You think Seattle and Sam Darnold are going to blow the Niners out? I don't. I'm not saying it's impossible. Anything could happen. We know that. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's more likely the Niners win this game outright than they get blown out. So I'll gladly take the 7 points in this game and take my chances with those points. And I might do a little something money line as well, because I just feel like the 49ers are the better team. And this is a year where they surprisingly go on a run. Really, it's been that way from the beginning, with Mac Jones carrying them to start the year when Brock Purdy was down. But Purdy's a far better quarterback than Sam Darnold. Shanahan, to me, is a better head coach than McDonald. Give me the Niners plus 7. The line's so fishy, in fact. If it were 4.5, I'd be like, I don't know. The fact that it's 7 points, give me the Niners in game number 2. Then to Sunday, obviously they're all fun games here, all huge games. I'm not going to overreact to what we saw in the wild card round. Whether it's the Texans defense scoring the 2 touchdowns, shutting down the Steelers offense, I think that's a lot about the Steelers as well. They just didn't have a good offense. So I'm not going to overreact. I know the Texans defense is legit and it's great. And I'm also not going to overreact in a negative way to the Patriots and their performance, because even though they won and ended up winning with ease down the stretch of that game, dominating defensively on Justin Herbert, he looked awful. I think and Drake May was not very good, and maybe a little jitters in, first postseason game. I would expect a much better effort from New England. And I don't want to say doubting them all year long, but not fully believing in New England this year. I think they win this game. I think the Texans have become a darling And I can understand it. D'Amico Ryan's easy to fall in love with. Nice guy. The defense is great. So who doesn't love a great lights out defense like that? The best defense in the NFL. But I don't think the Texans are good enough, certainly not offensively, to go into New England and beat Drake May and that Patriots off. The running game as well. Vrabel, a very good head coach in his own right. I would put him better than D'Amico Ryans, even though the defense favors the Texans. All the other categories, head coach, check with Vrabel. And then the quarterback play, as bad as Drake May was in that game, God, CJ Stroud, I don't know if you could be worse. He was awful. What has happened to CJ Stroud? So I'm going to side with the better coach, better quarterback, and they're at home. And I think the better overall team, even though the Texans have the better defense, give me the Patriots -3.5 at home. Wish it wasn't a half, but whatever. You do what you got to do. Lay the 3.5. And then for the finale, and this is the game that's kind of got me twisted up here. And I've said this now. I've done multiple guest spots this week. The regular guest spot that I do with Jimmy Traina on the SI Media podcast. And then I was on with Nick Costos, my buddy, on his You Bet or You Bet or You Bet show, the national show that he does. And I said the same thing. And Jimmy didn't like it. Costos did. Make what you will of that. But Francesa used to tell me, not me, he used to tell everybody, and then probably told me off the air too, but he would say this on the air. And I remember this as a listener, as a caller, and then certainly when I was working with him on the Mike and the Mad Dog show, that, the famous line, if you weren't there for the wedding, don't be there for the funeral. And that's how I feel with the Bears, because I've never believed in them all year long. So if I weren't there for the wedding to reap the benefits of maybe betting on the Bears or picking the Bears or believing in the Bears, then I don't want to show up for the funeral, meaning that this could be the time where the clock strikes midnight on their Cinderella Chicago story with Caleb Williams. And I'd rather lose with something that I believed in for the majority of the year, meaning against the Bears, not believing in the Bears. I'd rather lose like that than switch to the Bears now and be like, you know what? They proved me wrong against the Packers because I thought the Packers were going to win that game. And by the way, they should have. And now be like, how are they getting 4 points at home against the Rams? Because my initial read on this game was looking at it saying, what the hell? I think it was actually 4.5 earlier in the week. How are the Bears getting 4.5 points at home? Plus, the other thing here is the Rams have not been good. Dating back to the loss where they lost on Monday Night Football to the Falcons in a game that they had to have to stay alive for the 1 seed in the NFC West. And I know that game well, not because I grew up a Falcons fan, but because I picked the Rams in a knockout pool. And they killed me in that one. But they haven't been playing good football since. Even with the Panthers, I thought the Rams were going to roll the Panthers in the wild card round. And they didn't. They're lucky they won the game. So do I think McVay's a better head coach than Ben Johnson? I do. Do I think Stafford's a better quarterback than Caleb Williams, even with the thumb issue? I do. And Caleb Williams continues to make big plays. I don't know how he's doing it. The routine, easy plays he struggles with, but the incredible plays, 4th and 8, roll to his left, throwing a dime down the field. I mean, that is just impressive. I think the head coach quarterback combination are better with the Rams. I think the Rams are the better team. I've thought the majority of the year, or at least a large portion of the year, the Rams were, if not the best team in the NFC, certainly one of the best teams in the NFC. So am I going to go against that now just because the initial look at that line is, wow, Bears +4 at home? I don't think I could do that. I think I'm going to, if I wasn't there for the wedding, I'm not going to show up for the funeral. Give me the Rams -4 Sunday to close things out. And as much as this weekend is, in my opinion, the greatest weekend in sports, there is such a huge letdown after that game ends, 9:30-ish, whatever time ends, Sunday night, and you sit there, and I'll be with my buddies and whatever, hanging out, but you sit there and think about, oh, man, there are just 3 football games left. That's it. That's it. So the excitement of wild card round and all these games and the divisional round and all these games, after this weekend, 3 football games remain. So there is some sadness that sets in, knowing that it will soon be over. All right, so again, loose picks here. Bills, Niners, give me the Patriots at home to cover that spread, and give me the Rams. I hate picking favorites, And I know last week the public one, whatever it is, I'm going to go against the public too. I factor that in on game day. We'll see where the public's at with that. But for now, there you have it with the picks. All right, before we wrap up episode 2 of the Sal Licata Show podcast, a brand new podcast here. We get rolling with this, the new adventure, having some fun doing it. We introduced you to Bada Booms yesterday, who's my producer here. And Bada Booms and I were going nuts recording the first episode last night. Not just the recording of it, but to post it and this and that. And there was a lot of stuff that went into it. Bada Booms, you could join us now here. And the number one thing that I was getting, I don't know if you got any reaction from this, but people were texting me, some people on the comments mentioning, oh, who the hell is Bada Booms, number one? Where the hell did you get this guy from? And the other thing was that your mic sucked. One thing I didn't factor into this whole equation, because we talked about this for a couple of weeks leading up to this launch, was your setup, because I didn't really care. Honestly, I needed you to do the behind the scenes thing. I wasn't concerned about your mic, but I will be sending you some stuff. We got to get you, when you're going to be involved and be on the air with me here, we got to get you a better mic than the one that you have, because that was one of the comments that people kept making to me. Who the hell is this guy? And his mic sucks.
So thank you for introducing me. What a swift introduction, if you will. And I want to say one thing. People, this might get lost in translation. This guy who's right now to the left of me, Sal Licata, is a great guy. He actually offered me a fund to get a microphone at first before he decided to make a donation. And I went out and I bought just the microphone. I didn't know that you needed the whole kind of thing, so I had a little money left over, and I went made a different kind of investment. I got a little icy to celebrate our launch.
What is wrong with you? First of all, aren't you supposed to be the behind the scenes guy? You don't know that you need more than the mic? Like, even I know that.
Dude, look at this fucking thing. Like,
Yeah,
you
all
see a
right.
picture of this, and
Yeah,
you're like,
okay, you see a picture of it. What about the wire to connect it into? You didn't think of that?
yeah, no, I wasn't really thinking that far ahead.
And then what about, like, that you're now on YouTube and people
Mhm.
could listen to this, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, watch it on YouTube as well. What are you doing? The chain, the hood? What's wrong with you?
So, I like it. I don't know. I kind of look like a British drill rapper, or like a hardo kind of guinea in the gym. I was going for one of those two things.
What was the one thing that I told you, Bada Booms, before we launched? What was the one thing that I told you about the podcast format? Do you
Don't
remember?
speak unless spoken to.
No. Yeah, I
Oh,
think
okay.
definitely said that. Definitely said that. No, about the technical launching of the podcast, where I wanted to post it.
No shit, Mike. Oh, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Excuse me. It's been a long 24 hours here. Uh, Everything in line. We want to get all the audios out, all the the videos out. Make sure we have everything aligned.
Where did I want the podcast platformed?
Spotify and Apple, I believe.
Correct. All I
Okay.
said to you was make sure we're good to go on YouTube, button it
Mhm.
up, and make sure when the podcast goes out, it goes out on Spotify and Apple. So finally last night in the wee hours, because we had to re-record with the Harbaugh thing,
Mhm.
Bada Booms text me, we're good to go. I'm excited. I see it. Boom, it's on Spotify. I'm like, all right, is it on Apple? He's like, it's uploading right now. First comment that I see after I post the link on social media is, and the one to Spotify, he goes, is it up on Apple? And I go, yeah, it should be there shortly. And then Bada Booms is telling me there's an issue with Apple. What happened that you weren't prepared, even though we had weeks building up to this? What happened? Why were you not ready to have it going on Apple last night?
So I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little terrified even saying this on air, because I don't know what the executives are doing, and I don't know what's going on with the government either. Last night, as I go to click the button, everything was in line. I had everything nice. I had ducks in a row, if you will. Apple starts telling me that I gotta add my bank information. I'm like, all right, that's a little weird, but I gotta do. I made a promise to Sal. I made a commitment. Add your address, your tax information, take a full body scan, and I'm like, what the is going on here? It should never be this difficult in any sort of way. But with the creepers out there, I understand the full body scan. There's a market for my build, especially with the age. I don't want to get into all that right now, but that was the most ridiculous process to post an MP3 file that I think has ever had to be endured in the history of the world. But
Did
we're
I
up and
did I
running.
did I not tell you to check all that stuff before? Just to
You,
clarify.
I didn't even need a scan to post a podcast. It's really not that difficult.
But yes, we're up and running. A good job so far through the first 2 episodes here. All right, we'll wrap it up with this. What are you doing for this weekend? Are you? I talked about how big of a weekend this is for me. First, where does this rank to you, Bada Booms, in the sports calendar?
This is 1,000% up there. I know you said not wild card. I got a good one for you. Just wait. My best weekend in sports, because it is the always most exciting weekend for me as a Jet fan, is the draft weekend. To me, every hope springs eternal. Nothing is real. The Jets can do whatever. Or I guess free agency is not really a weekend, but everything's possible. They can win next year. They got the quarterback. They got the O-line. They got the receiver. It breeds this ongoing mental lapse of Jet fandom. So it's between this for me and then as a Jet fan, a draft weekend.
So draft weekend, you're into
hmm
that, and this weekend, and then do you have any special plans for the games? Like, what do you do? Enlighten me, because I really don't know you. We don't know you yet. We're getting to know you. What is Bada Boom's doing for all these games? Will you be sitting there watching in isolation? What's the food situation looking like? Take me through the weekend a little bit.
Gotta be. It's depending on how I'll feel, but it's cutlet parm or eggplant parm for the Saturday game. Sunday is a little
Home
bit more
cooking,
traditional.
home cooking, or we go out and order.
Oh no,
Where are we
that's
at?
deli.
Okay, all
Saturday's
right. Just
deli.
me.
Saturday's
Okay.
deli. Sunday is pasta. Now, in the future, I believe it will be home cooked. I will have my ducks in a row once again, if you will. I got a nice spot, a little penne al vodka. Are you familiar with the pink pasta?
I mean, what do you mean? Vodka sauce?
Penne
What's
al
pink?
vodka and
What's pink sauce? No, I
and
never.
the prosciutto.
No, oh, no, I'm not familiar with that.
All right, so a little pink pasta going. Sometimes a little linguine, some little
You
penne.
make it? You make it yourself, or mommy makes
Fuck
it?
no, fuck. I I'm picking it up from the spot, and because we're still waiting for sponsors, I'm not going to say the name, but they have an
I got
opportunity.
you.
You mentioned the games this week, and you're asking mindset. It's going to be a ball watchers only thing. Ball knowers and ball watchers are in the room. I don't want anybody who has bullshit casual opinion. This weekend is honestly particularly huge for me as a Jet fan, and other Jet fans will agree. We can't have a Bills Pats AFC Championship. That is a nightmare scenario. That is a team that I grew up disdaining and a team that I've been bred into disdaining. So really, there's two goals for me this week. Uh, get the Bills and the Pats out, and then I can enjoy the Super Bowl. I can enjoy championship weekend. You did touch on it before, and I know my clock's running out here. I see I'm about to, get the eject button and go flying out of my seat through the roof here.
You're starting to know me. Yes.
The
Wrap it up.
post,
Wrap
yeah, I,
it
I
up,
can already see
Audible.
the comments right now. I can already plug his mouth. The post clarity of NFL divisional weekend is the worst in all of sports. It's almost as bad as when the Yankees get eliminated every year and I have to sit there and watch the other team celebrate. It's like, how did that go so quickly? Like, Mike used to say all the time already, it's Thanksgiving already. It's going to be the end of the year. But that's, I think it's a great weekend. It also has an awful demise once it's over, though.
All right, Bada Booms. Well, enjoy the weekend. We will be back here. So this is obviously the launch week of it. We'll be back here next week. Yep, we'll be back next week for episode 3. What is today? So yes, this is Friday's episode. We'll be back next week for episode 3, following the national championship game. We have some other stuff planned next week. Of course, anything that happens, you can catch us sometimes live on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe, download, like, whatever you got to do there. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the above. We appreciate you listening. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.